In today's video, Supreme Court has handed President Trump his biggest win yet. Democrats have set up a shadow government to stop Trump, and new details have emerged in the murder of Austin Metcalf.
We're getting some breaking news at this hour coming out of the Supreme Court. The U.S. Supreme Court has handed President Trump a victory, letting him and his administration use the 1798 law that historically has been employed only in wartime to swiftly deport alleged Venezuelan gang members as part of the Republican president's hardline approach to immigration, granting that administration request to lift the Washington-based U.S. judge James Boasberg's March 15th order that had temporarily blocked the summary deportations under the Alien Enemies Act.
Now, here's what Secretary Kristi Noem had to say. President Trump was proven right once again. SCOTUS confirms our Commander-in-Chief Donald J. Trump has the power to stop the invasion of our country by terrorists using wartime powers. Leave now or we will arrest you, lock you up, and deport you. And Stephen Miller also is celebrating here. He says, Alien Enemies Act now in full effect. The foreign terrorists will be arrested and expelled. All right, so the bottom line here, it's a huge win for President Trump and a major loss for Democrats. Because remember, this is the only tool left for Democrats, besides violent protests, that is. And I'm talking about lawfare. That's all they have left, okay? Now, SCOTUS has ruled in favor of President Trump, which confirms that, one, there is no constitutional crisis, and two, that he's not violating the Constitution, that he's actually following the law.
This is a big victory for Trump in the new lawfare. So the old lawfare was try to destroy Donald Trump, 91 indictments, 2 impeachments, civil suits to destroy him and all the rest of it. That all failed. He won the election and came back stronger than ever. And so the new lawfare is to try and stop him from implementing his agenda through a miasma of court cases. And this was a perfect example of it. And the Supreme Court is now allowing him to use this law. So this is a first victory in the fight against the new lawfare.
All right. So why don't you guys answer this in the comments section? What do you think about this? All right. So you got the 3 liberal justices, and then you have Justice Barrett. She actually ruled with them in regards to the Alien Enemies Act. Okay, because remember, it was a 5-4 decision. I just want to know what you guys think about that. I mean, I can't remember the last time Justice Barrett actually ruled in favor of President Trump. Not saying there's a conspiracy, but I definitely want to hear what you guys think about that. All right, so that's not the only loss for Democrats. Hear about this other ruling that just came in.
Tonight, the Supreme Court is temporarily blocking a federal judge's ruling requiring the White House bring a man who was in this country illegally back to the United States from El Salvador after he was deported there. Kilmar Abrego Garcia was arrested and deported last month after U.S. immigration officials accused him of being an MS-13 gang member. Garcia's attorneys deny any sort of gang affiliation. They filed a response late today in which the lawyers wrote he's never been charged with a crime in any country. He is not wanted by the government of El Salvador. He sits in a foreign prison solely at the behest of the United States as a product of a Kafkaesque mistake.
So the key thing you have to know about this particular ruling is it's not over. Okay, so the Supreme Court has not reviewed the merits of the case. All they're doing is just removing the order that demanded the Trump administration to return the deported migrant back to America, which is already insane in my opinion. And listen, I'm of the belief they won't rule in favor of this individual either. They're going to rule in favor of President Trump. The guy crossed the border illegally. I mean, I just don't see how it makes legal sense to take him from another country and bring him back. Now, here's what his attorney had to say about this ruling.
What is your next step if it doesn't go your way, I suppose is another way of asking it, given that this is at the Supreme Court?
Yeah, I mean, we're very confident that the Supreme Court is going to agree with all 3 judges of the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals, the judge from Maryland, right? Now all 4 judges who've looked at this case have all agreed that the government's response that they can whisk someone out of the country by accident and then have no responsibility to fix, what they've broken just doesn't make sense as a legal matter and is also just disturbing as a matter of constitutional law. So we are fully confident that we're going to prevail at the Supreme Court.
Okay, so clearly the attorney is confident that they will win this. But let me just point out something that I think is very important, and it may point to why they will lose. Mr. Garcia was in the country illegally, but an immigration judge in 2019, after reviewing evidence, withheld his removal. So if we just stop there, he already broke the law, okay? That's number one. But the judge gave him a chance, allowed him to stay in the country. Why? Because of this. Well, the judge found that a gang in his native country had been targeting him and threatening him with death because of his family's business. Now, of course, the Trump administration has claimed that Mr. Garcia is a ranking member of the MS-13 gang because the Trump administration designated MS-13 as a foreign terrorist organization. The withholding from the immigration court was no longer enforceable. Now, the opposing side says this: in the 6 years between his immigration hearing and his deportation, Mr. Garcia checked in every year with the immigration officials and was never charged with a crime.
It's still very early to tell how this issue will play out, but essentially what this does is it really takes away authority from the immigration courts who have already heard this issue.
Yeah, so you guys can't have it both ways. You can't say that President Trump needs to respect democracy, which this is democracy, right? You take it up to the courts and they do their thing. And then at the same time say, well, you know, the courts are robbing the authority of other courts that had already ruled on this. Okay, I just don't see how that works, but that's just me. Now, if you guys really want to hear something outrageous, here is your favorite Democrat, Jasmine Crockett, saying this about immigration.
So I had to go around the country and educate people about what immigrants do for this country, or the fact that we are a country of immigrants.
Right.
The fact is, ain't none of y'all trying to go and farm right now. Okay, so I'm lying. Raise your hands. You're not. We done picking cotton. We are. You can't pay us enough to find a plantation.
Yeah, so I don't even know what she was saying there, but before I even react to that, if you guys have been getting value from this channel, or particularly this video, please like, share, and subscribe. If you want to support us further, you could go to the links in the description below, shop our merch store, or buy us a cup of coffee. Now, I don't understand anything that she said, and I'm sure you didn't either, but this is who is speaking the loudest over there for the Democrats, and that's her perception of immigrants. Nobody's telling Americans to pick cotton. We all know that. However, we are demanding that these individuals come into our country legally, because if we're just going to say, hey, they don't need to follow the law, then what is the purpose of laws? Now, here's what the White House press secretary had to say about these rulings today.
This is a massive legal victory, Jesse, a massive victory for law and order and for our constitutional republic and the sovereignty of the United States of America. We called on the Supreme Court to rein in these activist judges like Judge Boasberg, who was completely out of line in trying to say that the president didn't have the executive authority to deport foreign terrorists off of our soil. We have always maintained the position at the White House that the president was well within his constitutional authority to do so. And this decision proves that President Trump and our administration have always been right from the beginning. He will continue to utilize the Alien Enemies Act to remove foreign terrorists and Tren de Aragua members, vicious gang members from American communities. And because of this ruling, the United States of America is a much safer place. Our team will get to work tomorrow to deport these heinous, violent foreign terrorists from our neighborhoods.
Yeah, so it's not really complicated, folks. Joe Biden allowed a massive invasion into our country. And so we should allow President Trump to have a mass deportation to get these people out of our country. I think it's really that simple. All right, so let's go to our second story. That is Austin Metcalf, the teenager who was murdered at a football game because he was stabbed. Now, so much has happened since we first talked about it, and so I want to give you guys my updated opinion, which really hasn't changed much. But let's first hear Will Kane give us additional details. Watch this.
All right, we have an update for you on a story we covered last week. It's the heartbreaking story of the 17-year-old Frisco, Texas football player who was murdered at a track meet. Texas police, Frisco police, have launched an investigation after social media users started spreading fake details about the murder. That student, Austin Metcalf, who was knifed to death at a track meet. Authorities say he was stabbed by a teen from a rival school. But social media has posted falsely, claiming that Metcalf died from a drug overdose. There are other claims that Austin was the aggressor in the fight. There are claims that Austin was a white supremacist or far right. And as a result of these fake claims, the accused murderer has raked in nearly $170,000. Those are donations that go to what he claims is a self-defense case.
And let me update you on the Give, Send, Go which is the official support fund for Carmelo and his family during this challenging and difficult time after he murdered someone. Okay. The goal they're trying to raise is $300,000. What they're going to do with the money, I would love to know. I think it's probably for his legal fees, to be fair. They've already raised $196,000. And this has actually led to a huge debate between conservatives online about who actually donated to this campaign. Now, it started by Matt Walsh putting this up. He said thousands of people in the black community have rallied around Carmelo Anthony and given over $160,000 to his family as a reward for murdering a white kid. Now, in the comments section, you had two black conservatives. One, Zeke Arkham, who said this: "I'd be willing to bet more white liberals have donated than anyone. I respect your intelligence, but this is just race baiting." And then the Hodge twins said, "I bet most of the donations are from cucked white liberals." Now, this prompted a response from Jason Whitlock as well, where he said sentiment is correct here, not sure about the details. All this money isn't from American blacks. There are a lot of demographics investing in racial division chaos. Race pride compels foolishness. The killer is the real victim. Insanity. Point to Christ. This is the only solution. And finally, ABL said this: "Yeah, because black people are the only ones defending this person and nobody else has the ability to donate money on the internet." Matt Walsh, ladies and gentlemen.
One last note. There was a fake profile post going around, reportedly from the Frisco police chief, saying that Austin was the aggressor. That was so egregious and so false and so widely spread that the Frisco PD had to put out a statement on their website saying the chief of police has not put out any such statement. This story is covered up in fake news and controversy and a lot of hatred on the internet. But what it remains today is heartbreaking.
Now, listen, my opinion hasn't changed. Even if I buy into all the rumors, the kid was a white supremacist. He tried to bully Carmelo. He put his hands on him first. Let's say I go with that. Still, why are you carrying around a knife in your backpack and you're willing to stab someone knowing it will kill them? I just don't see why it's that serious. Now, maybe you guys can help me see it, but I don't see it. But again, that's just my own personal belief. I've yet to hear his parents actually come out and make a public statement. My opinion hasn't really changed that much. I do think it's a failure in the home. I think it's a failure in our community and a failure in our society that kids today think this is what we have to do. And I'm still using their logic and their excuse on why this happened. Okay, now we go to our third story, and that is Democrats are now warning Americans how bad this is about to get for everyone, okay? This is their fear-mongering campaign, and we're going to react to it. Let's start with this statement that was made on MSDNC.
I don't know what it's going to take for the American people, for 78 million Americans, to deal with what motivated them to make the choice to elect this man again, to make the choice that will allow these people to undermine every fundamental assumption we have, that you can just be disappeared, and then they can argue that, a court is getting in the way of their ability to exercise, foreign policy in some ways, right? I don't know what it's going to take for 78 million Americans to deal with what motivated them to make this choice. We chose a felon who is more interested in loyalty, who's more interested in retribution, who's more interested in grift than in democracy. And we chose a felon because we didn't want to elect a black woman.
There it is. That's exactly what they're still stuck on. It's all about race and gender and not about the actual issues that Americans care about. And as long as they continue to speak this way, we will continue to encourage it, because I know the average American does not relate to that statement. It's not about the color of her skin. Most people didn't even think she was black, may I remind you. But more importantly, just based on merit alone, we knew she was not qualified. Now, as a result of President Trump making these moves that are obviously keeping Democrats up at night, they have now set up their own shadow government, is what everybody's calling it. And they've hosted their first hearing. Take a look.
Extraordinary step of convening this unprecedented hearing. We brought together both chambers of Congress, the Senate and the House, to conduct real oversight and to serve as a check and balance, to hold those who misuse power to account and to carry out our constitutional duty. Convening this hearing was not our first choice. We have tried to get our Republican colleagues to hold hearings, to do meaningful oversight, to assert Congress's authority as an independent branch of government. But to our great disappointment, our Republican colleagues have abdicated that important responsibility. They have stood by as the president has run roughshod over the legislative branch and turned Congress into little more than a rubber stamp.
All right, let's understand this. This hearing is more about a dog and pony show than it is about stopping President Trump. What do I mean by that? Well, we've seen how violent the base has gotten in regards to Democratic leaders. Okay. And so they got to show that they're doing something, and this is that something for them. Now, what's interesting, it wasn't too long ago that we heard individuals claiming that this needed to happen. Take a look.
We see one of the first things they do is try and restrict the vote. This is one of the things, though, that this is going to take power to the streets. I don't know what the answer is on this, but I've been saying this. I think we need a shadow government, so when all these things come up every single day, we've got an alternate press conference telling the truth about what things are happening, telling what's going out.
So I suppose this type of hearing will float their boat, but like I stated earlier, it's going nowhere. Now, this brings me to the question of this video. What's your reaction to SCOTUS ruling in favor of President Trump? Listen, I believe from day one he was in the right. He used an actual law on the books to execute an order. But Democrats, they have to use the only tool they have left, which is lawfare, and it's run its course. And this is a huge one. So let me know what you guys have to say about this in the comment section below. Now, earlier today, President Trump made news by threatening China with 104% tariffs. This really is getting crazy, and it's escalating quickly. So if you missed out on that story and more from earlier today, all you have to do is click on that video because it's coming up right now.